Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's performance of Critical Idiots will feature Daniel in the role of everyone.
How does a bastard orphan sell?
Hamilton is an innovative hip-hop musical that tells the story of one of the lesser talked about founding fathers of the United States.
Alright, so should we go into pros?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Alright.
So I'll start it off. The performances by pretty much everyone.
Amazing.
Well, from Hamilton to Lafayette to Jefferson to Washington.
Guys, honestly, isn't it easier to say, did anyone have a bad performance?
No.
Can anyone name someone that was...
I didn't like Lee, and I didn't like Aaron Burr.
You didn't
I
like...
You're both wrong.
Loved Aaron Burr.
Aaron Burr was amazing.
O'Donnell Jr.
Leslie
but
Odom Jr.
yeah.
I just
What
found
did you dislike
found
about
him really annoying.
Again, it's like a Beastie
No,
Boys
like,
quote.
no, but he kind of did it in a way where he was just like very like...
Weasley?
You
Yeah,
know,
like
you know when
really-
somebody's like,
I don't know, because it was just something...
I don't gel with that.
Like I want to let's just sing. I want a whole segment to talk about Jonathan Groff.
Yes.
He's absolutely
yeah.
fantastic.
And he's in this for such a short amount of time, but he's
it
so
steals the
memorable.
show.
He brings so much
Yes.
in a little time.
He's so. He's
Oh, actually, and he's also not even moving. Like, the majority of it,
He
he's
has
still...
tiny, very basic choreography.
He also puts out a lot of saliva.
Yes.
And it's like flying out the camera.
to be in the front row where Jonathan Groff.
Yeah, they have a
spinning
thing. It's
all
like if
over.
you're in the front 3 rows, you might get wet. It's like Ocean One. Yeah, but he was fantastic.
Just
He's so good. I didn't know how much of a fan I was of John.
Yeah, no, I liked him a lot after seeing Mindhunter, and then I saw this and I was like, this motherfucker can sing and dance as well. This
No fair.
this talented I love you. I went, oh my
I
god.
kiss you.
A lot of the cast are like that. Like Leslie Odom Jr. and David Diggs, they both do really phenomenal stuff.
A lot of the cast I've noticed have now gone on, like you see them in other things. Like I saw
Yeah.
David Diggs in Snowpiercer.
I just love that everybody had such different styles, like to their voice. And then, one
So
thing
you
you
met
mentioned
us?
to me is, I wish they had more of Thomas Jefferson because he had such like cool
He's got
walk.
the swagger.
and yeah, the swagger was
It's-
so good.
That's just David Diggs. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
Lafayette's cool as
He's
well.
so insanely awesome.
He was my favorite performer, I think.
Yeah.
See, I agree. I would have preferred more Thomas Jefferson or Lafayette, but I also feel like he was in it for that perfect amount. Like,
Yeah.
because
Just a taste.
if he puts a little bit more in, it might be like obnoxious. But
Yeah.
he's got that swagger. He's
Yeah.
coming in.
He was easily the best technical rapper.
Yeah.
And
One of the lead cast. So.
what I found is with his rapping skills, it sounded very close to like an early Eminem sort
Yeah,
of
it
vibe.
sounded very Eminem. Yeah.
Well, even the writing, just generally.
Yeah. It's got a whole Eminem vibe. They got multiple in rhymes and multi-syllable rhymes as well. It's just the writing work that Lin-Manuel Miranda has done it's insane. I really commend him for that.
If Aaron Burr's
just with-
meant to be the antagonist, I want to feel his character.
So
a
the
lot
thing about
more.
Aaron Burr, I actually really loved that in Act 1, his whole thing is kind of wait for it. Like he's like he has a way that he wants to go about things where, unlike Hamilton and his friends that are like they're gonna get themselves killed, they're so like revolutionary and wild. And then in Act 2, he's like, no, this Alexander Hamilton's getting everything he wants. I want to be in the room where it happens. I want that to be me.
Yeah.
And so he like totally changes.
I've got to be in the room. I've got to be. I've got to be. I've got to be in the room. I gotta be in the room. Click boom.
And I
That's
love
why
that
I
little
liked him a
artwork.
lot more in the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did love that. Aaron Burr's like very studious and he's trying to get that done, and Hamilton's just coming through like,
Yeah.
right, like, everybody's like, dude, Hamilton, yeah, ooh. Aaron Burr's like, come on, man, I
Let
wanna
me
be
be
in
your
the
right
room.
hand man. Yeah, I saw Leslie Odom Jr. I saw a few social posts from him, like walking around like New York and stuff, and I was like, how is this man walking free? Like he shot Alexander Hamilton, and he's walking around doing TikToks and shit. You should arrest this man.
Pass nation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing in the face of casualties of sorrow. For the first time I'm thinking past tomorrow.
Favorite songs, obviously, opening number,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
My Shot.
Yep.
I love Helpless, and then
Satisfied.
I
Oh,
love
wait.
Guns and Ships.
Before we get
Lafayette.
Non-stop.
Before we get into that, we gotta talk about the lady.
Oh, I
the
know.
lady.
Yes.
That was the smooth thing I've ever seen.
And Wait For It.
Wait for
great.
it. Wait for it is hands down my absolute favorite.
Room Where It Happens is great.
Right Hand
yes.
Man.
Right Hand
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
Well, History's Gonna
Wait
Tie Eyes
For It.
on You.
That song where Hamilton's like considering doing adultery. That song was great.
Oh yeah.
That was my other favorite.
Like, the
what's it
R&B
called?
numbers in this is just good. I really love it.
What's that song called?
Charles,
Yeah,
it's
what
like
is that
40
song?
songs. You're not gonna have them
I
all.
know, I need to know.
We've got the album.
Close to this?
Say no to
Say
this.
No to This.
Say
That's
no
it.
to
I like
this.
to say
No,
this was
I don't
great.
wanna
Yeah,
say
the King George songs.
All right, let's get into the final thoughts.
I just
Oh,
want to
nobody
say.
even mentioned the Schuyler sisters.
Oh,
the
the-
Schuyler sisters.
Okay, can we talk about Peggy?
Angelica. Eliza.
And
Oh, yeah.
And Peggy.
Peggy.
They clearly did not.
I mean, apparently he had 7 kids, so I think Peggy was just that one to be like, yeah, they all died.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Shout out Peggy.
Yeah, shout out to the homie Peggy.
with the Satisfied's the one where it's about
Her unrequited love.
yeah, and
The wedding.
you first sort of see all these scenes of like setting up the romance between Hamilton.
That's Helpless.
and then it comes back those same events but through
Yeah.
Satisfied. I found that really good, especially as a
So good,
storytelling,
yes.
technique, and just watching these same events happen but through like a completely different lens emotionally.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, the woman that played Angelica Renee, I think maybe stole the entire show for me. She was just outstandingly talented.
With how she held her notes
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, yeah, she
so
was-
good.
Oh,
Look,
How?
this is gonna sound weird,
Powerhouse.
but like her mouth opened too wide for some of those.
You know what? It was like Josh Gad in Artemis Fowl when he
Breaks the
But yeah, it's those kind of things. It's like, oh, she's a show person.
Yeah. Wait for it. I think is a song that splits a lot of people, and it's like probably the least show tunesy song. It's like almost a pop song.
It is. It just, and you know what? The second I finished watching that, I downloaded it.
Yeah,
'Cause
saved the
that
playlist.
song is such a banger. I love it.
Yeah.
I did think the guy who performed as George Washington, he was very
Chris Jackson.
He such a strong
Yeah.
voice. All the notes were on point. Like
Such
he was
presence.
really good.
He cried.
Yeah,
I think
Presence
several
on
times.
stage.
yeah, the
Wow.
presence.
Yeah,
Christopher
Chris
Jackson. He was incredible.
And his History Has Its Eyes on You is also another one of the highlights from this musical for me.
I liked what a dick George Washington could be in this, or is like dying's easy, son, living's harder, and then like after they win the revolution, he's like winning's easy, governing's harder. And like, dude, can I get a break? Then all I can to start this country.
And then you govern. Governing's easy. Taxing's hard. And then,
There's constantly moments where, because sometimes they would maybe quote a famous phrase from a founding father, but when there'd be these political debates and they'd have them as rap battles, I constantly, for some reason, assumed these were the actual speeches. And I was like, man, that is a sick burn. I can't believe.
What is it?
He really
Thomas
knows
Jefferson
doing the
actually
plants
said
and-
that?
Yeah, dude.
Run to your daddy. Holy shit.
Cool.
Lin-Manuel didn't actually have to do anything for this. He looked back at the speech. He's like, this is fire. I don't even have to do anything.
Just put like a beatbox beat behind it, man.
Easy.
I was like, how do they know all these modern references and colloquialisms?
Wait for it, the one where Aaron Burr's going.
Love doesn't discriminate.
Oh,
no, it's like, and he's
Saints.
telling Hamilton to slow down, calm down.
Talk less.
Yeah.
Smile
No, but there's
more.
another
Was that one?
where he's like going, why do you keep writing these letters?
Like you're running out of
Oh,
time.
No, 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 it's not that
Which
one.
one was that one?
That's non-stop.
Yeah.
Why
that's
do you
probably
write
my-
like you're running out of time?
That's probably my favorite.
How do you write like you're running out of time? Write day and night like you're running out of time. Every day you fight like you're running out of time. You're running out of time. You're running out of time. How do you write like tomorrow will arrive? How do you write
Which one was the one where he said "talk less, smile more"?
He says it a few times, but the
But
opening number,
the first one where Burr's telling him about it.
yeah, Burr.
Actually, that's another good point to bring up. The intro to sort of wait for it. Yeah, the intro to wait for it. Is kind of talking about Burr's daughter, who's recently been born out of a cheating relationship.
British officer.
But they don't really go into that at all.
No, I think it's more just like painting him as a human being.
Yeah.
I actually really relate to Burr in some ways.
And the other thing I did want to say is, as Aaron Burr shoots, he vividly describes his entire life. It's like his whole life flashes before his eyes while Aaron Burr is shooting, and the music's faded away, and he's just talking at rapid speed, just all these thoughts
referencing every single number we've heard throughout the show.
I think it's another example of really cleverly, smartly written,
structured
motifs. It's just such a fantastic writing job that Lin-Manuel Miranda has done. Yeah, and I've got to give him endless amount of praises.
I love that final scene with the bullet and just like everything moving that bit closer, like jumping closer and closer, and like him just rushing through like the last few seconds that are gonna go into his head and what's about to happen. I thought that was so perfectly executed.
And the way the use of the revolving floor. I love gets played in especially in that last scene.
But just the whole musical, the use, it's such a simple set, but it's so smart.
Can
we talk about the gasp at the end?
Yes, the Eliza gasp.
So at the end of the musical, the very, very last thing that happens is it's debatable if it's Lynn or if it's Hamilton leads Eliza to the front of the stage, and as if she's either seeing heaven or seeing that her story's finally been told, she gasps, and then it fades to black. What did you guys make of that? Because it's totally open to interpretation.
I completely missed that.
Yeah, right.
I thought it was just that moment of understanding that Hamilton's passed away.
I think...
Which I thought was maybe the
surface
surface
level
level
finding
of it,
out
but there would have been more depth to it.
I think...
Wait, sorry, is that you mean her getting the news that he's dead?
Yeah, well, it's just all come together after everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was the idea that there's her story. The idea of Hamilton, somebody whose story was never told, but there's going to be people even beyond that.
The last song, who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I see it as Lin-Manuel Miranda leading Eliza, going like, "I've written this story, and like this story's finally been told." And then he leads her out to the front of the stage, and she sees that a whole audience full of people are there listening to her story, and then she gasps, and then it ends.
Yeah,
and that fucking chokes me up.
So it's more literal in the sense that to the people that are watching the performance.
Yeah, it's like if she could see what their legacy has become,
and
she would be so proud.
Years
and
later,
also, she was the one telling his story.
Yeah.
So her message has sort of spread across the world and through generations.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. That's a really good thought. I didn't actually think of that.
I think it's so poignant. I love the way it starts, the way it gets there, and the way it ends. Those are my favourite parts about this musical.
I'd say one point on that is with musicals, since it's different to a film, with a film I'm trying to look for those meanings. But with a musical, I'm just there for it. And I just feel like I'm watching them do it. So I didn't even have that thought. But that is a good thought.
I really enjoyed that finally seeing this, because my introduction to Hamilton was through Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh yeah. Same here.
Yeah, and so I Lin-Manuel.
He's gonna put a musical on with Larry David.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel is with Larry David, because he always has like a guest star in each season, and every time he has a guest star, like they're a huge asshole, and you just throughout the season like leave Larry alone, like what is wrong with you?
Like such a tool.
It makes him look like a massive bag. And so every time I watch a season of Curb Your Enthusiasm and there's like a celebrity I've never seen or heard of before, I get this impression and I'm like, man, I hate this person. They're the worst.
He's what is it? The Skylar effect from Breaking Bad. What I want to talk about is I was going through the sample credits. And they have some interesting musical interpolations in this.
There's so many little references.
So obviously we have the 10 Crack Commandments by Biggie Smalls, but they've also got Party Up in Here by DMX, The Message by Grandmaster Flash, and Shook Ones Part 2.
Yeah.
Shook Ones?
They had Shook Ones in there. I have no idea where.
I didn't hear that.
Something that's, ingrained in sort of the hip-hop culture is Lin-Manuel Miranda's performance.
It's very authentic.
Yeah.
This musical in terms of being rap, in terms of, really having those... knowing its material.
Yeah, he's obviously done his research.
Yeah. Basically a fan.
Obviously.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of the 90s sort of era.
Just in terms of like the through line, I think there's sort of like a big idea. The main idea of this musical is this person who is quite integral to the to the creation of America as a country, but somebody who people know all about.
Then apparently there's 3 things. He was shot, he had an affair, and he started the central bank. And that's kind of all anyone knew about him, really, generally. And I think now that's changed. Now he's the $10 founding father.
I was going to say, if you're looking at this as a piece of historical fiction, you could easily say it comes off like propaganda and it could be problematic. But if you look at it like fan fiction, it's not that way, and I think you should look at it like fan fiction. But I think the problem is a lot of people are going to go in with no history and be like, man, America was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that might start conversations with people. They might be like, oh, yeah, George Washington.
Yeah. And for me, it never made me go, this is a bad musical or anything, but it did make me feel conflicted at times. Like, there were some of the George Washington scenes I felt really uncomfortable, and it's not because I went like, oh, this is bad, it's propaganda doing, whitewashing with black people.
I think we should start off with the cons first, because I feel like, to me, there are so few.
It's very difficult.
Okay, I guess we're done. Let's move on to the pros.
I'm gonna say, me being nitpicky, I felt like the sound mixing was it left something to be desired. I had to keep turning up my speakers and up and down, and it was really annoying to do that all the time.
I thought that for a musical about Hamilton, I thought that Hamilton was the weakest link in the musical.
In terms of performance?
In terms of like, when you're, say you're in a rap battle or whatever, you got to bring the heat. And I never felt like he brought the heat. I felt like he got the idealistic side of the character quite well, but he never made me go like, oh, damn. Yeah. I'm more of a story person. So it's like with a musical, it's meant to be more showy, and you're meant to sort of get into the grandiosity of the songs and the movement and the dance and stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, but what's it about? What's the storytelling? And it felt like it was like an outline of Hamilton's life, and I never saw much of a through line.
The thing is, it is based on a biography of Alexander Hamilton.
I look at it as a kind of almost a telling of his life through like a series of themes from him and the people around him.
Okay. I could just never tell like a central theme, and the whole third act was based around like epilogue kind of stuff that didn't really tie into story beats like of the political stuff that was happening building up to that. So it just kind of was like
mixing the romance and the political doesn't ever find a parallel. They do feel like very opposites. They don't become congruent.
So it felt a bit like,
did you care more
almost like a cool lame, like it was going for like the story on paper sounds really lame, but it's then the execution is why people think it's really cool.
Actually, this is another thing I want to bring up. This on paper, this sounds like it would suck. A rap about
founding fathers of America.
But I imagine that's what's kind of like enjoyable and what people like about it, though. It's like it's so wrong, it's right. And I feel like the whole musical was just kind of like clever, in that kind of field.
And it's probably what people were like, you've got to see this, because it's like, I can't imagine what this is going to be like. I have to go see it.
But it just never elevated to a point for me where I was like, wow.
All I'm going to say is I'm really appreciative of the music style, because he could have just as easily gone, I'm Alex Hamilton, and I'm here to say that I was the young king back in the day.
I'm so glad it wasn't that.
It could have been so terrible, but I feel he pulled it off really well.
They do a really good job of going through different genres. Like there's clearly some more R&B, influenced tracks, or things are a little bit harder and a little bit more
it was like a
modern.
soft piano ballad type things.
Yeah, minimalistic with the sounds as well.
So we're done with pros. We're going to we're done with cons.
Actually,
We're going into pros?
I have a
in
con.
pros at the
I
moment.
have a con. One of the cons for me in this was that I don't think it was, and I think if you, on reflection, on a second watch, within the text of the musical, they do explain everything. But if you're not listening to it, you can easily miss it. When characters in the second act that you've met in the first act they're playing different characters.
The actors play different characters.
There's about like maybe 5 people in the first act that aren't there anymore, and they play different people. And so, like for example, I thought it took me ages to realize it was Thomas Jefferson on stage. Now, not Lafayette.
But they also do that in a way where it's like he goes off to France and then someone comes back from France.
Yeah.
And it's the same actor, a different character.
And he's all like dolled up and he's wearing like way different clothes. But my idea is like, Lafayette, I've gone back to France and I've come back, changed my name, and I'm Thomas Jefferson.
Like some years have passed. You know, his style's a bit different now.
I'm like naturalizing to America. I used to be known as Lafayette in France, but everyone knows that the English interpretation of Lafayette is Thomas Jefferson.
The other thing I want to talk about was that so I watched Newsies the other night, and that was a musical I love, but I hadn't seen the stage production before, and that was filmed in a similar manner to this. I think it's also another Disney production, and it was super high quality, but it was just so tight. Every shot was like a mid-shot, blurred background, and there'd be sequences where there were 40 people doing pirouettes and leaps and flips on stage, and I'm like, can I just see some of that? It was really jarring, and it took me out. I knew I was missing out on a bunch of stuff. And so when I first saw Hamilton, it's kind of changed my perspective. When I first saw Hamilton, I was I wanted more close-ups. I was like, is this the best seat in the house though? And then upon reflection, I think this is how you film a musical. I think it had the perfect mix of these wide shots where you see the whole ensemble cast, but when it needs it, it pushes in and it's super nice and tasteful.
Especially when it's a very impactful moment. They just get the close-up. And most of the music's faded away. And it's just, it's a really powerful scene. I really appreciate it.
And because I'm a big fan of musical theatre, and I thought this was great. I loved this. And I'm really sad that I'm really seeing it now.
Well, you didn't see it.
Well, I've heard the soundtrack, but it's only just...
Yeah, we didn't go to America. I mean, you might have, but...
I've been to the West End, but it wasn't... I saw it in the Heights, which is his musical he did before this, on the West End, but... I haven't seen Hamilton before now.
From my impressions of you, I just thought you would have flown there.
No,
you in musicals, you're like, give me a ticket.
Rich,
I'm going.
Going to Broadway.
Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. Da 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 da.
There are a couple of things that are wrong with this, but in my opinion, it's all very nitpicky. So I can't really, fault it for too much, and I don't want to really degrade the musical as it is, because they're just minor problems, like the sound mixing, like the propaganda thing. I feel it's a minor issue, so I'm gonna give it a 10.
Hey! Daniel's first 10.
Love it.
I highly enjoyed this experience. I'm, as I said before, not super well versed in live productions, even just stage productions, let alone musicals. And usually musicals aren't my thing. I do tend to gravitate towards something that has a lot more story or concept or a definitive character involved. And that's not something I usually find in musical. I didn't have that problem at all with this, and regardless of that, just so many of the tracks in this were fantastic. I think that it seems very strange that I know that there are a lot more contemporary musicals out there, and that there have been contemporary musicals probably since rock and roll became a thing, but this feels like a really big step in the right direction to making this this sort of content more palatable in the mainstream. And not that I need something like this to enjoy musicals, but this was just it ticked every box, and there's not really many things I can think of that detracted from it for me. So I'd give this a 9.
Happy to go.
Yeah.
So as we've just heard, a lot of my friends here aren't like necessarily well versed with musical theatre, or previously like purposely exposed themselves to it. And I think that's really what's great about this musical, is that it's a musical for people that generally like don't go see musicals or spend 3 hours watching a period piece about the founding fathers set to rap music. In its efforts, I think it's nothing but like a smash hit. And from everything from the choreo to the set, which is simple but really effective, to the performances, which is like stellar, I think it's nothing short of amazing, and so I'm just gonna give this film a 10.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna seem like riding really hard on this musical, but I think that it was a lot of fun. I just thought as a story it ran a little shallow, because I thought that it banked on being clever, which is still like, it was a good time and a good show, and I enjoyed myself. I was worried at first, it took a while for it to get going for me, and then it was solid for like a good hour and a bit. And then the last half an hour lost me again. So overall though, like considering everything that goes into it, all of the choreography, and just like how impressive that is as a whole, I would still give it a good rating, and I still recommend that people go to watch it. I would still give it a 7, which is the rating I'm going to give it. There were some aspects though that kind of brought it down for me, but I'm giving it a lot of leeway, because I think of how amazing an accomplishment something like this is, and how wonderful this is for theatre, and what that's going to do for people going to these shows and stuff, I think is amazing. I did think that the 2 central performances with Aaron Burr and Hamilton were lackluster for me, but then again, they still had my favourite songs and were involving them, with Non-Stop and the
room where it happens?
No, I like that song too, but the one where he wants to seduce, the adultery one.
Tell me how to say no to this.
Tell me how to say no to this. I loved those songs.
They're great.
The only other thing is like, definitely view this as fan fiction, I'd say, because as a historical document, I don't think it's very accurate. And I'm not entirely sure what story it's trying to tell. It felt like an outline that was very fun.
Okay, so I'm going to give this film a 9. I think there are no performances that are weak. The point that you brought up with Lin-Manuel during the earlier parts were a bit distracting with his voice, but I think he really brought it, and it progressed in a good way for the musical. I might change my score in the future, as I think once there are more musicals that have this kind of format, they could do better things. As the Founding Father, plotline, I wasn't really there for that. But yeah, the costumes, the set with the revolving floor, the performances, everything I loved. So I'm going to give this a 9.
That's when I began to pray, Lord, show me how to say no to this. I don't know how to say no to this, but my God, she looks so helpless, and her body's saying hell yes.
So this is the second musical about the Founding Fathers.
Oh, what's the first?
What's the first?
1776. Won the Tony when it came out, and it's about John Adams.
I say vote yes. Vote for independence. Will someone shut that man up? Never!
Yeah.
Because they referenced that song.
Yeah.
They referenced that song. That's interesting.
So that's where that's from.
Oh.
So John Adams gets his own. That's why they him so relentlessly. So like, you have your own thing.
Yeah, he got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, he's the butt of a joke.
Oh, I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering why they didn't cast John Adams.
Because he's dead. That's why.
Oh, and he's got a mini-series. Yeah.
John Adams is fine.
Dude, and he's got his own comedy special now on Netflix.
And he has a whole family.
He's an orphan.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and be sure to stay tuned next time for The Five Bloods, and maybe we'll throw in a couple of other reviews there. Who knows? We're fun. We're spontaneous. We'll switch it up.
We're hip, young, groovy guys.
Yeah, we're cool.
If there's a review that you'd like to see in the next 8 months,
Sonic, Bad Boys.
So take care, guys. Bye.